You've seen AI do some pretty amazing stuff, right? But you've probably also seen it get things, well, completely wrong. So how do we make it smarter? And maybe more importantly, how do we make it more trustworthy? Today, we're going to look at two really powerful ways to do just that, acting like special experts for the AI's brain. So, have you ever asked an AI a question and it just makes something up, but with total confidence? In the tech world, they call that a hallucination. Or maybe it gives you info that's totally out of date. Why does this happen, even with the smartest AI? Well, it's because an AI only knows what it learned way back during its training. Its knowledge is basically frozen in time. You can think of it like a super smart student who has to take a final exam, but isn't allowed to bring any books. To fix this, we need to give our AI an open book test, a way for it to look up new information whenever it needs to. And to give our AI that open book advantage, we're going to call in two different kinds of experts. First, we've got the librarian, who is incredibly fast and amazing at finding exactly the right piece of information. And second, we have the detective, a total genius at connecting all the clues and solving tough puzzles. Let's get to know them. All right, let's start with our first expert, the librarian. This whole method is called RAG, and it's all about one thing: finding the right facts and finding them fast. RAG. It stands for Retrieval Augmented Generation. Sounds super technical, right? But the idea is actually really simple. Just focus on that first word, retrieval. When you ask the AI a question, RAG acts like a super librarian who zips through the stacks, finds the perfect book with the answer, and hands it right over. So how does our librarian do it? It's a simple three-step plan. First, it builds the library, organizing every single piece of information into a nice, neat catalog so it's super easy to search. Second, when your question comes in, it instantly finds the exact book or page you need. And third, it gives that info to the AI and says, here, use this to write a fantastic, reliable answer. Okay, so when would you call the librarian? RAG is absolutely perfect when you need answers based on the very latest info. Think about a customer support chatbot that needs to know this week's product updates, or an app that gives you a summary of today's news. But here's the catch. The librarian only grabs one book at a time. It doesn't connect ideas across the whole library. So if it accidentally grabs the wrong book, you get the wrong answer. But what if the answer isn't just sitting in one book? What if it's a real mystery with clues scattered all over the place? Well, for a job like that, you can't just send a librarian. You need to call in our second expert, the detective. And this brings us to KAG, which stands for Knowledge Augmented Generation. Now, instead of just finding documents, the detective builds something called a knowledge graph. Seriously, just picture one of those corkboards from a detective movie, with all the pictures and red strings connecting every single clue, person, and place. It maps out how everything is related. The detective's method is also 3 steps, but this time it's all about cracking the case. First, the detective builds that big investigation board, carefully connecting every piece of information. Second, it starts connecting the clues, following those strings on the board to see the entire picture. And finally, it solves the case, giving the AI a rock-solid conclusion based on all the evidence. You bring in the detective for the really tough cases, the ones where you absolutely, positively have to be right. KAG is so accurate because it doesn't just find facts, it actually understands the relationships between them. This is a huge deal in fields like medicine or finance, where you need to know not just what the answer is, but why. The only trade-off? Building that super detailed investigation board takes a bit more work up front. Okay, so we've met our two experts, the speedy librarian versus the brilliant detective. It's time for a little showdown to see who's right for the job. Let's break it down side by side. The librarian works with plain old text, and its job is basically to find and summarize. The detective, on the other hand, works with that structured map of connections, and its job is to reason and conclude. You see the difference? One gives you quick facts, the other gives you deep understanding. And look, when the questions get really tough, the numbers don't lie. In a test that measured answer quality on a scale from 1 to 5, our librarian, RAG, scored a 2.86. Pretty okay. But the detective, KAG, scored a mind-blowing 4.46. That's not just a little better, that is a massive leap in quality. In fact, get this. One study in the medical field found that for complex, multi-step questions, the detective improved accuracy by up to 33.5% compared to the librarian. In some cases, that's literally the difference between a good guess and a life-saving diagnosis. So, does this mean the detective is just better? Should we fire the librarian? Well, not so fast. The real magic, the future, actually happens when they stop competing and start working together. It's all about building the ultimate AI dream team. Imagine this. The librarian, RAG, acts like the field agent, racing out to quickly gather all the different files and reports. Then it hands all that intelligence over to the detective, KAG, who puts it all on the big board to find the hidden patterns and solve the case. When you combine that incredible speed with that deep understanding, you get a truly superpowered AI. And here's where it gets really cool. As these tools get better, they'll start building their own libraries and investigation boards automatically. So our job is going to change. We won't be the engineers who build the system anymore. We'll be more like the architects who decide what knowledge is important and how it all should be connected. And that leaves us with one last really big question to think about. When an AI can build its own brain, our job shifts from being the builder to being the guide. We get to decide what matters. So what great mysteries will you want AI to solve first? Thanks for diving into this with me.